This is Team Me, Team Us, and today I'm going to be doing a quick book review on a book that's I found really helpful when I was just diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder, because I literally didn't know a thing about it unless it came from horror films, so that wasn't great. Anyway, the book is called Dear Little Ones and it's by Jade Miller, and the wonderful illustrations are by Germaine Zanietti. Okay, when I first had this book read to me, my clinical psychologist who had diagnosed me brought it in, and she read it to us, and I was just blown away by how directly it could connect with the younger alters that I was aware of at the time. The language was really aimed at children or very young alters, but like many books that are aimed at children, when it comes to self-help, I think that it would be useful for people of any age or people who have alters of any age. I think the first big thing that the book goes into is just how much what happened to you was not your fault. And when it comes to dissociative identity disorder, or DID, or also some forms of OSDD otherwise. The self-blame is a really important thing to tackle, and that's something that the book does really well. When DID forms, it's because of repeated and severe trauma that's inflicted upon a child under the age of around 6 to 7, although, as I said in a previous video, there's an increasing amount of research that suggests that 4 years old is the actual limit. So either way, a lot of severe trauma has been inflicted on a child who's completely not got the literal brain power to deal with this, and it's severe, but it's also repeated. And something I found as an adult is that when the same things happen over and over again, when I'm mistreated by certain people in society, certain groups in society, over and over again, I stop sort of thinking it's their fault and start thinking, what can I change about myself so that it doesn't happen to me over and over again. So if you look at that and then you put that onto a child who's 6 years old, whose brain hasn't finished developing fully, yes, they'll from the brain's point of view, that it will create these different personas so that the abuse is happening to them. The trauma is happening to the other persona, not to the actual body. It's totally understandable that this is what the brain will do to cope with these terrible situations that keep happening again and again and again when the child is so young. But still, with all of that being said, if as an adult it's difficult to not blame yourself for the repeated acts of cruelty that are happening to you, as a child it's completely natural that they're going to blame themselves. And even if it wasn't the repeated and severe abuse, often children will blame themselves for things that they don't understand, think it's their fault that their parents are arguing, think it's their fault that they're getting bullied at school, or that something completely outside their influence, because children that young, they're not going to really have much influence about anything really, but they'll still blame themselves. So that was a long way of saying I really liked how the book looked at and addressed the fact that it's not your fault. And then it goes on to say that you're amazing, you're worth protecting, and that you didn't deserve this. Another important thing that the book touches on is for the young alters to be aware that time has moved on. The the time period that the abuse started, for example, with me, 1972, when I was 3 years old, that's almost 50 years ago now, because it's 2022. But it's, the alters are stuck in their own kind of bubble of time, holding on to the trauma so much so that I as an adult, or I as the host body, doesn't have to feel such intense pain. And even though that threat, that actual violence and abuse is almost 50 years in the past, they don't know that because they're just stuck in that period of time. So I'm really glad that the book addressed that alters need to be reassured that that particular threat is gone, that they're safe now. Yeah, that was really important. The third thing that I really liked was just an appreciation of the alters, saying thank you for keeping the body alive, thank you for taking on and holding that trauma when the body was too young and the brain wasn't developed enough to actually deal with it, and that we're sorry that you had to go through all of these things and that you were created on the inside. But thank you for looking after the body. I really appreciated that. The kind of middle part of the book goes on to the first of many repetitions of choice, that now that the threat has passed, that the alters, the whole system, the alters and the host, has a choice about what to do next. And because choice was something that was missing through all the abuse and trauma, you know, the children didn't consent to any of this. They had no choice in this. They just had to survive it. And surviving is a choice too, but it's not much of a choice, really. It's just something that happened for me. I'm talking about myself personally here. But having a choice now, being able to consent to things now in the present day, is something that's really important to me. Another part that I was thankful for was the communication, the importance of communication. The book says maybe you can try to find others on the inside, other alters on the inside, in your inner world, or in the inside the body, inside the brain. Find some more if you're able, and maybe you can be friends, maybe you can work together. And I really like that. And it wasn't just making friends with other alters that may be a similar age to you, but also finding older alters, or alters with different abilities, because they're the ones who probably have to find help in the outside world. They're the ones who may speak up and actually say, this is what happened, we need help, the body needs help, we all need help. They're the ones that might be able to better interact with the outside world. Overall, the book is great, but there were a couple of things that were less than helpful and could have been looked at in a bit of a different way. But these are things that just, I think, affect me a lot. The first thing is the use of gendered language, and it is very gendered. I'm non-binary, so I didn't really appreciate that. But for some other people, it still might cause problems, because the author refers to other alters in the body as being like brothers and sisters. And that completely ignores the fact that non-human or non-inanimate objects could also be alters. One of my now dormant alters was a road. I pictured myself as a road because a road doesn't feel pain. A road doesn't get assaulted. A road is just there. It's unfeeling. And that's what I felt that I truly was when I was very young. Another non-human alter that goes outside of gender binaries was monster. I still sometimes think of myself as the monster, which is kind of ironic really, because the people who perpetrated this kind of violence on a little child, they really are monsters. But it's something that I really embodied in myself, that I am the monster. This is why things are happening. I am the monster. This is where all the bad stuff goes. The host body is this terrible thing. So there was no kind of mention of non-human alter personalities, just a brother and sister. And again, the second thing about that, which is really unhelpful, to be honest, is what if your brothers and sisters, or brothers or sisters, were the ones who are perpetuating the abuse and the trauma? You're not going to really want to think about your internal people, your headmates, as the same label as the people who caused the harm in the first place. So some of my brothers and sisters did perpetuate quite a bit of the abuse. But anyway, that's something that, that I thought could have been better. But with that said, it is an excellent book, and I really would recommend it to anyone. But just be aware that some of the language might be less easy to digest if you are non-binary or genderqueer, or if you're just aware of these sort of things. That's a tiny part of what I think is an excellent book, and I would happily recommend it. Since I read this book, there's been another 2 books in the series written by the same author with the same excellent illustrations, and I'll leave links to that in the description box. But the first book, that is the one that really made a huge difference for me. So I hope you found this useful, and I'll say goodbye.